living in the middle of nowhere. Well, for a couple years on this channel, I've kind of made fun of living in the middle of nowhere, not wanting to. Because on this channel, part of it is simple living, where I talk about possibly living in an RV or a tiny home, living off the grid. Because I looked at all those things in my nomadic journey. And what you find in your research is that to have a tiny house or to live in an RV on a piece of property you own, you kind of have to go into the middle of nowhere towards the countryside where the land is unrestricted, so that you have the option to have a non-conforming house, whether it's a tiny home, which is usually under 500 square feet, or an RV. You know, a lot of places won't let you just buy a piece of land and live in your RV. So the reason I didn't go forward with buying a piece of land in the middle of nowhere is because, you know, you want to be by infrastructure, by stores, hospitals. I don't have kids, but a lot of people want to be by schools. And my major thing is I want to be by the beach. And there's not too many unrestricted pieces of land by the beach. Unrestricted pieces of land living in the middle of nowhere is usually in the country. And for the reasons I mentioned, most people have families and they need to have jobs that are in cities. They're not going to live in the middle of nowhere because it's too long of a commute. It's too far for their kids to go to school, and there's not enough infrastructure. However, for some people, retired or nonconformists such as myself, people that can work remotely, living in the middle of nowhere is an option. Because in today's modern era, where really all you need is a Wi-Fi signal or a signal on your cell phone, you can do a lot of things working from home. And as we're in this national global pandemic of the coronavirus, COVID-19, we're in like the third week here in America of a national lockdown where people are quarantined to their house, meaning they're asked not to leave their house unless it's an essential reason, such as getting food or medical supplies. So, you know, if you're quarantined to your house, even though it would be nice to live by a populated area for resources, all the resources are closed. So people who are living in the middle of nowhere are kind of winning right now. They have cheap land, cheap property taxes. They have distance between their neighbors, and there's lower cases of people infected with the virus because there's less population. So it brings up the point in this video, would I reconsider buying a piece of land in the middle of nowhere, or should you? Because after this coronavirus passes, society may change forever in some instances, just like society changed in some instances forever after 9/11, or after any major impactful event. Society adapts and changes. So obviously it's going to depend on how long this pandemic lasts and how much of an impact it has. Okay? Because right now, like say in America, we're in week 3 of a national lockdown pretty much. But it's, guys, never in history has America and the world, I think, at the same time, had their whole economy just basically shut down, their whole society basically shut down. Not in the modern era of the world, and definitely not in the modern era of America. So this is new ground. So there's going to be some new changes. So after this virus, if it lasts, you know, a year or months, will people look differently at where they buy property? Will they not want to buy in cities or populated suburbs? Will their companies say, you know what? After we went through a couple months of everyone working from home, we don't need that many people in the office. And maybe more people will work remotely because of technology. That's possible. So then it opens back up the question, should you consider living in the middle of nowhere where you can maybe buy land for cheap, have cheap property taxes, put a tiny home if you want, live in your RV on that property if you want, if it's unrestricted? Something to consider. So what I would share with you in this video is if, you know, we get through this and hopefully, you know, again, not too many people are affected, and love to all those who are affected, but, you know, maybe real estate will go into a slump or maybe it will snap back. But I think, you know, it's something to consider if you were looking to live a nonconformist life. Obviously, it's going to depend if you have children or not. and where your job is located. Because look, I mean, I think no matter what, if you have children, young children, and if you have a job in a metropolitan city, you know, it's a big change not to have those resources for your children and for yourself. And even me, you know, even if you have the option to work remotely, I still like to be by the beach and be able to be by Starbucks and the gym. But I don't know if those things will change. So be mindful how long this lasts. Be mindful if buying property in the middle of nowhere, especially, may get a great deal, to have a home base may be worth it. Now, maybe not. You know, maybe you'll still do better in campgrounds or renting or whatever. But I think it's an interesting thing to really give some serious thought to. Because I looked, you know, even before this crisis, I looked at times in Florida at land in the middle of nowhere. And there were some things like I almost bought, for those who watch my channel, I almost bought a RV lot in the middle of nowhere pretty much for $25,000. And the taxes were like $300 a month, and you could put an RV there. And, you know, there's something to be said for that. So let me know in the comments below, after this pandemic has passed, after the coronavirus, COVID-19 has passed, do you think property in the cities or populated suburbs will be as valuable or as attractive? And would you consider, especially now after this impactful event, living in the middle of nowhere, especially, you know, if you're a nonconformist, meaning that, you know, maybe you live in your RV now, or maybe you always wanted to buy a tiny home, and maybe now too, you know, you may downsize because you've been woken up by the reality that life can change like this, and you're living in a house that doesn't inspire you, you got too much waste. And so let me know in the comments below if you appreciate this video. I appreciate if you click that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you're not. Share the video. Check out my playlist and my Patreon. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace and love.